What's up, team? My name is Tom, and today I'm gonna check it out why Americans love big cars. For me, it was always a question why? What is about big cars that you guys love so much? So let's check it out.
In this low-lying car I drive in, I've been noticing something lately. When I'm sitting in traffic, I either can't see past the cars in front of me, or the cars around me are towering over me. And it turns out there's a big reason for that. The production of passenger cars like sedans and wagons for sale in the US has been in free fall since 1975. And in their place has been the steady growth in the production of SUVs.
I wonder why.
Last year, SUVs and trucks made up 80% of all new car sales. Compare that to 52% in 2011. The fact that Americans like big cars probably won't shock anyone. They are everywhere, even in my parking scarce neighborhood in Brooklyn. But the reasons behind this transformation are more than just cultural. It all goes back to a 50-year-old policy that would kick off a huge shift in the way US cars are designed.
Also, guys, here in Latvia, I sometimes pass the parking lot, and if there are big cars, like a lot of them are from America, and I'm like, oh my gosh, even from 90s and 2000s, like those SUVs are. And then still people drive them here, so like it's bizarre.
So I'm driving from my home in Brooklyn, New York to a beach in Rhode Island for a summer vacation. And along the way, I'm going to piece together why big cars took over America. New York was the 45th state to officially succumb to the takeover of SUVs and trucks in 2014, according to this Washington Post analysis. Alaska was the first state to go big car dominant in 1988. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for things I should look out for while I'm on the road.
Anywhere that you stop, count the number of SUVs versus the number of passenger cars.
Okay, and
That's
the
interesting.
Costco parking lot filled with SUVs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Wow.
7, 8, 9.
I guess one of the reasons is that it's easier to fit a lot of people inside this big car, like family, if you have a couple of kids. Also, if your wife loves take a lot of stuff when you go camping, this is the thing about women in my family, right? They love to take a lot of stuff, and sometimes I'm thinking to buy a bus.
10, 11 SUVs in a row. I think that is my new record. So once you learn about how much big cars dominate the road, it's like you can't unsee it. People have lots of reasons for choosing a big car, and certainly the infrastructure in the US supports that choice. Unlike a lot of other countries, our built environment revolves around cars. We have wide roads and wide, plentiful parking spaces, and homes with plenty of parking. I arrived in Connecticut, a state that succumbed to light truck dominance in 2016, and pulled into a rest stop where I interviewed Thomas Bochenek. He was on a cross-country road trip with his wife.
What is bizarre that a woman is doing this video, right? Not being like sexist or bad towards women. I mean, men are more interested in cars than women, in my opinion. And this is, like strange for me. But what?
It's very
it is what it is.
Okay, to drive. Well, I think the bigger the car, the more you have a feeling of security. The smaller the car, the more likely I think about getting into an accident and being hurt.
That's interesting point of view, by the way. I never thought about that.
It has no trouble pulling this almost 7,000-pound trailer.
Yeah, well, that's nice.
In other countries, one deterrent for big cars is that they cost so much to fill up with gas. But due to low taxes on gas in the US, fuel is extremely cheap compared to other countries. But there's another overlooked bias towards big cars related to why SUVs exist in the first place. In the 1970s, there was a shortage of foreign oil in the US.
1973 dramatized U.S. dependence on foreign oil.
So
Also, take a look what the sizes of the cars were in the 1970s, and I bet you they ate a lot of gas back then.
The US government set rules for automakers to start making cars more fuel efficient to lessen our dependence on the whims of the global oil market. By 1985, new cars had to get 27.5 miles per gallon, or roughly double their fuel efficiency. These new rules applied to cars like sedans and station wagons under a category known as passenger cars. But there were types of vehicles the US government exempted from these rules, things like pickup trucks, which everyday drivers weren't really driving at the time.
And the idea was, if these are working vehicles used by, farmers, construction crews, companies that are hauling freight, those vehicles need to be able to do their job without being choked by emissions controls and without being held to unrealistic fuel economy.
That's interesting.
So passenger cars got one set of strict rules, and this other category, called light trucks, got another set of more relaxed standards. This regulation created an incentive for car makers to transform light trucks into a vehicle for everyday use. Put in a radio, lots of cargo space, and comfy seats, and voila, that's how we got the SUV.
Okay, girls, we're off in our new Jeep Cherokee.
Behind that classic appearance, it's rugged and powerful.
An automaker needs to spend less money and less time on fuel economy and emissions improvement if they're making and selling an SUV, because it falls under a category that is less stringently regulated.
We had the Wagoneer, but it was very low volume, very bespoke, very expensive. So only a very few people bought it. People that lived in Manhattan would go to the Hamptons or go to northern New York State to go skiing. And that's how the SUV started off life.
This is Ralph Gilles, head of design at Stellantis, a conglomerate of car companies that includes Jeep. One of the early SUVs was the Chevy Blazer, built on the frame of the Chevy S10 truck.
Man, looks nice. Chevy looks really nice.
This is the traditional definition of an SUV, if it was built on the frame of a truck. And to meet the legal definition of a light truck, it had to have some clearance angles and dimensions just right.
Taking a utilitarian vehicle and turning it into a almost a premium luxury device that happened to be utilitarian. Then comes the Grand Cherokee.
The Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Listen, guys, this Jeep is a legend in Russia in 90s. Also here in Baltic states and over East Europe, like criminals used these Jeeps a lot, man, a lot. If you saw a guy on this Jeep, there was a big chance that he was a criminal. Also, they used BMWs a lot, Mercedes a lot. So yeah.
Cherokee was built the way passenger cars are, in one piece, or unibody. These two types of car constructions, frame-based and unibody, today form the distinction between traditional SUVs and the new, increasingly popular category of crossover.
They're more efficiently packaged, you don't have the frame.
The Grand Cherokee was part of the early success story of SUVs in the 90s and 2000s, one that continues today. This bias towards light trucks is why a company like Volkswagen, which once sold primarily passenger cars, has discontinued a lot of them today, like the Passat, in favor of SUVs and crossovers. And they've stopped producing all of their wagons, including the Jetta wagon I'm in. And a company like Ford has stopped producing all of their passenger cars except for the iconic Mustang.
Wow, I didn't know that. My father has a Ford Focus, right? It's an old one. And I thought they still produce like cars, but like I haven't seen it in a while. So now I know, GMC.
Okay, I'm gonna see if anyone at this car dealership will talk to me.
Buick was always car, really. It was mostly sedans. And then just with the market shift, we actually don't even sell a Buick sedan anymore. They don't even make a Buick sedan. It's all crossover.
Wow, take a look at the tent on the roof of the car. Is it like you can literally get into it while it's on the roof and it won't bend the car roof? Man, then it's like phenomenal. Imagine. Yeah.
When was the last time you guys carried like a Buick passenger car?
It was like 3 or 4 years ago.
And how many did you have on the lot?
Yeah,
like 1 to 100 of SUVs. We're here to sell cars, and we want to sell what people want. If they were here and people didn't want them, I'm glad they're not here anymore.
So,
my gosh, that SUV was just like one of a kind. I mean, when you see a person on this kind of SUV, I will think it as like a big person, like driving a big car, and then it stops and there's a little girl comes out, Man, that would be so funny.
this chart starts to make a lot more sense. 1975 was the year these fuel economy standards for sedans and wagons were passed, the same ones that didn't apply as strictly to SUVs and trucks.
It's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing because the automakers have been marketing SUVs more preferentially than passenger cars. They've been putting more research and development into creating more models that fit into the SUV category. And they've made it so that it's an easier decision to get into an SUV than it is to get into a passenger car.
As of 2016, our fuel economy standards shifted. Vehicles are still separated by the stricter standard for passenger cars and looser standard for light trucks. But within those categories, there are more breakdowns. Regulators multiply a car's wheelbase length by its width to get a footprint. And larger cars within each category get weaker rules. That means that car makers are not only incentivized to phase out passenger cars in their fleet, but they are pushed to make each category bigger. The Toyota Camry got both longer and wider, and the Toyota RAV4 did too. I've now reached Rhode Island.
So looks like it's more efficient, more profitable to take like SUV if you travel a lot to save some money, right? Than a passenger car because like a smaller car because you just have to pay more for the fuel.
The very last state in the country to go light truck dominant.
Also, guys, if you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, very important. And I have a question for you guys. What about the insurance? What is the insurance policy in USA? Does it cost a lot to have a car? How much payments you need to make per month, right, for a car? Of course, I understand that it depends what car you have, right? But let's say a passenger car. And do you have these taxes on the road taxes, let's say? And yeah, that would be great to if you would leave it in comment section.
To electric vehicles, but
if you're still talking about a larger vehicle with higher ground clearance that's heavier and taller, it's still going to be less energy efficient, whether it's an electric car or an internal combustion powered car.
One sobering impact of big cars is the threat it poses to pedestrians. One study found that replacing the growth in SUVs with cars would have averted over 1,000 pedestrian deaths. People on foot get hit higher and in more vulnerable regions when hit by an SUV or a truck rather than a passenger car. Before hitting the beach, I stopped at my friend Kevin Wright's house.
Man, that was interesting.
He bucked the SUV trend and drives a Honda Fit, a car that was discontinued in 2020.
We had our daughter about 17 months ago. It's just kind of making sure that everybody has enough space to be comfortable as well as being safe. It gets good gas mileage and thinking about long-term, climate change is happening. What can we do to minimize our carbon footprint as much as we can? So we were thinking about a second car, maybe getting an SUV in that situation.
This is what I love about this generation, right? We think about the nature. We try to save the earth because we live on it. And you don't want to destroy your home, and I'm so grateful for that there are such people like this guy and people who sort their garbage, plastics, etc. And yeah, guys, that's really nice.
But ultimately decided to kind of go the other direction and got an e-bike.
Interesting choice.
You have arrived.
Even though we're in Rhode Island, which was the last holdout for SUV dominance, there is still a lot of SUVs here. I'm curious if you think there's any political will or urgency to change this trend towards bigger cars.
That's something that has environmental concerns. It's something that has economic concerns with how much we are reliant on oil. It also has to do with safety, pedestrian safety, cyclist safety. So there is a desire among younger people and more politically active people to try to make it so that an SUV is not the default vehicle choice for American families.
The U.S. is unlikely to become a small car country anytime soon. But this dramatic transition to big cars wasn't just about consumer choice. It was enabled by policy choice.
Yeah.
So if we want our roads to look different, we could try and start there.